sheep design, and today is my regularly scheduled Tuesday live stream. Um, Tuesday lives are really kind of across the board with what happens on Tuesdays. Some Tuesdays are just a way for me to check in and catch up with you guys, let y'all know what I'm working on, what's coming up. And then there are other Tuesdays like today when I've picked a topic and I try to do a deep dive on the topic, something that I feel like will be helpful and interesting for not just the fiber arts community, so crocheters and knitters, but makers and artists and entrepreneurs and small business owners, solopreneurs, as I like to say, and as kind of a known term now, but people who, if you're running a small business by yourself, maybe it's just you and your partner or your spouse or whoever, running a small business. And I've talked a lot about collaborating with brands. So this is something that, if you run a small business or if you are an entrepreneur or a maker or an artist, you may have wanted to collaborate or tried to collaborate with these larger brands. So for me, as a crocheter, I have talked a lot about collaborating with brands that make yarn. So doing collaborations to get free yarn so that I can make different products and promote the products of these different companies. And I've talked a lot about that, but I really wanted today to be more about collaborating with other makers, other small businesses, other artists, other crocheters and knitters, other people who are doing the same thing that you're doing instead of trying to collaborate with these larger brands, which obviously you can do both. I do both. But I've realized there's not a lot of information out there when it comes to how to collaborate with other artists and makers, how to start that process, what a collaboration actually looks like with other makers. How to reach out to other makers that maybe you don't already have a relationship with. So, getting your foot in the door and opening up this opportunity for new relationships to be created. So, that's what we're going to talk about today. And I came on a little early so that I could get through my intro. And, for anyone who is joining and didn't know what today's Tuesday Live was about, I see we've already got a couple of people joined in. Welcome. Let's see. And I do need to let me open my comment section over on my computer so that I can see what you guys are chatting about and answer any questions. Let's see. I'm going to pop out my chat. And thank you, Kim. Kim says such a great topic. All right, where's my pop out chat? Come on. Oops, live chat. Pop out chat. There we are. And now I just need to make it big enough so that I can see what's happening from my chair. There we go. And okay, let's do this. Okay, all right, back in action. And I have to say, this is one of those where if you want to take notes, I would take notes. If you're super interested in the topic, I have a whole 2-page spread of things that we're going to go through today. I am going to try to keep an eye on the comments, but if you have specific questions, please pop them in the chat as we go. I would love to answer any questions you have about collaborating with other makers. So pop them in the chat if you have them. Laura's Yarn Talk is here. Welcome, Winter. Hello. I said I saw Kim. Ellen is here. Hello, hello. Okay, so let's jump right in because I have a whole bunch of stuff that we can talk about. And like I said, please feel free to ask questions as we go. Take notes if you want. This will be something that you can replay at your leisure if you're not able to stay for the entire live. Okay, so why collaborate in the first place? That's kind of the big question. Why am I even making this video? Why does it really even matter? Collaborating, first of all, can help you make friends. I think I talked about this a little bit when I announced this live, that as we get older and as a lot of us have moved to remote work, maybe we're busy with jobs and families and all of that. And it can kind of be hard to make friends, and collaborating with other creative people can help you make new friends. It can help you grow your creative community. It can help you find support systems that we all need. So collaborations are a great way to do that. And it's kind of, in a way, depending on the collaboration that you choose, it can be a really low pressure way to be like, hey, we are creative people. Let's be friends and do something together that's really fun. So that's one great reason to collaborate, is making friends. And the more creative friendships that you have, you never know when that's going to lead to an opportunity in the future. Because when you have these people, and I'll talk about this a lot, because the whole reason that I made this video was because of the collaboration that I just did with Corey of Korai Goods. And we collaborated to create this ginormous yarn bowl. So Corey is a ceramics artist. I am a crocheter and pattern designer. And she reached out to me. Corey and I had not talked for a couple of years. I mean, we met back when I lived in Atlanta. We probably actually met in person for the first time in 2015. And, we had a good vibe with each other. We may not have gone and gotten coffee all the time, but we really enjoyed the times that we actually talked and saw each other in person. And because of that friendship forming, even if it was not this BFF friendship, it was just a creative maker connection that we made. She thought of me when she said, hey, I might want to make a yarn bowl. And she said, I know someone who crochets and we got along really well. I'm going to reach out to her. So you never know what kind of friendships and opportunities are going to form from having these collaborations. With that in mind, collaborations also make sure that you keep your relationships strong. So if you have someone that you've connected with in the past, and again, with all of these long distance relationships, unless you get to a point where you're like texting each other, you may forget about people, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but again, we have lives, we have jobs, we have other things that we're doing, and we are making more friends online. And so unless we have this schedule of like, I'm going to check in with every single one of my friends every month, it can be difficult to maintain those friendships. So I think that collaborating is a great way to keep those friendships strong, keep them top of mind, so you don't forget about the people that you really do want to make sure that you're working with, because working with them brings you joy. And I think that's, another big piece of this is you want to work with people that are fun to work with, that are enjoyable to work with, that, it's not just about the money. It's not just about the followers. It's about you creating a community that allows you to maintain inspiration, to keep your motivation for what you're doing, and to be excited about your craft. And I think that collaborating can play a really big role with all of that. So let's see. Friends that love yarn just as much. Yes. And the great thing is with collaborating, it doesn't have to be in your same area. And actually, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think this was my next point. So collaborating allows you to share audiences. For some people, this may feel like you're also sharing your potential money and your potential sales. But this mindset can lead to isolation and it can lead to burnout. And I think that's really important. It's this whole idea of community over competition. Some people think that it doesn't exist. I tend to believe that it does. I believe there is space for all of us. My favorite way to look at it is the cereal aisle in the grocery store. So if you walk down the cereal aisle in the grocery store, there's literally an entire aisle just for cereal, because there's so many different cereals out there and there's room for all of them. So that's always been my favorite way to look at this whole community over competition idea. And it does get easy for us to drop into this mindset of like, well, if I collaborate with this person and they do something too similar to me, then they may make all the sales and I may not. But I think that's why it's so important for us as creative people to find our niche, our style, putting our own spin on things, and working with other makers who also have a strong style to their brand. So, for instance, one of my favorite examples for collaborating with someone who's in the exact same field as you, in the exact same area, but has a totally different aesthetic, is when me and Alt Knots, Kayla of Alt Knots, do anything together as a collaboration. And that's because Kayla and I have totally different aesthetics. So, on my end of things, it's bright and colorful and crazy, weird, funny faces if you look at my profile and all of that. And then Kayla is more on the alternative goth side of crochet. She has the darker colors, the black colors, the punk and horror film inspired crochet pieces and designs. So she's also a pattern designer. I'm a crochet pattern designer. Technically, yes, when we share audiences, some of the people that were purchasing patterns from me may purchase patterns from her. That's the whole point of sharing your audiences and sharing your communities and making sure that your followers also can discover other people to support within the community. Remember that most people who support creators, artists, and small businesses don't have an exclusionary mentality. And this is something that I've talked a lot about when I have hook makers onto my Pink Sheep and Friends series. So if you guys don't know, on Fridays on my Instagram feed, I have a live series called Pink Sheep and Friends, where I bring people on to my channel within the fiber community. And this could be yarn dyers, crochet pattern designers, crochet hobbyists, yarn company representatives, hook makers. So it's anyone within that field, pattern design or pattern testers and knitters and anyone you can think of. And something that I love about bringing other hook makers on, because we design and sell our own crochet hooks, is that we have a lot of the same customers because they're collectors. So, yes, there are some people maybe who buy from me who don't buy from any other hook makers. But for the most part, if I mention someone's name that has bought a lot of hooks from us and is active in the crochet community, they've bought hooks from other hook makers. So I love to think that, and I like to look at it from the point of view of like an artist. So if you're an artist and you are, selling your art and you have really big fans and collectors, a lot of times if you were to go into those customers' homes, you're not just going to find one artist's art on the walls. And I think that's important to keep in mind, that the mentality of the people who shop small, who support local, who love, supporting small independent businesses, are not going to just buy from one small business or one artist or one crocheter. They're looking to collect these beautiful pieces from different people. So I like to keep that in mind anytime you have that little voice in your ear that's like, maybe I shouldn't collaborate or support, or not support, but promote this person because they're too closely associated with me. I think there's room for us all, and so far I haven't been proven wrong. So, keeping the positive vibes here. Okay, so this was, let's see if I've already talked about this, because I tend to get ahead of myself on these, but I'm trying to give you guys all the info. Let's see. So by collaborating with people in the same area, so let's say I want to collaborate with another pattern designer. Okay. We both have followers and audiences that are interested. They're already interested in that type of thing. So if I collaborate with another pattern designer, I know that their followers are already interested in crochet patterns. So you are going to be targeting an audience that is already interested in what you're selling. So I think that's important as well. That's the plus side to collaborating with someone who already creates something that's closely associated to what you create. Let's see. As artists and creatives, we all have our own style. So I like to focus, again, talking about me and Kayla, or let's see, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I have brought people on who have a very vintage 70s style to their work. One person I can think of off the top of my head on Instagram is Sugary Co. So people who have a different aesthetic or maybe use very different techniques. So when I collaborate with someone, my designs are super, super beginner friendly, very uncomplicated. And I love getting to talk to people who do super complicated knitwear, mosaic crochet, tapestry crochet, all of these things that take quite a bit more focus and intensive work for the design process and the creative process. And so finding someone who does something similar, but you can talk about these differences in techniques. And I think that's extremely important when you're picking someone that you want to collaborate with. How to find people to collaborate with. This is one, a big point. And so start with your immediate circle of friends. So if you have people that you're already talking to, that you're already friends with, that you're already commenting on their stuff a lot, that they comment on your stuff, there's already a connection there. It's going to be a lot more natural and probably a lot less intimidating for you to reach out to them to do some kind of collaboration. So who do you follow on Instagram? Who do you already support? Who already supports you? Who do you subscribe to on YouTube? Who do you find yourself chatting with in comments or direct messages? Maybe it's someone in a Facebook group that you're a part of, that you guys have connected and you know that they also either run a business or have some kind of, social media presence where you guys could do some kind of collaboration. This can also be local. So if you have, I really wanted this video to be helpful, not just to people that are crocheting and knitting, but to people who are makers within their community. If they go to art shows, things like that. So I will have information helpful with that as well. So it could be someone who's local to you that you could collaborate with. And this is great if you're a crocheter and you want to collaborate with someone local in your community who does something else. So maybe, again, like the ceramics. So we are not local to each other, but at one point we were. So if we had both still lived in Atlanta, we could have gotten together in person to promote this collaboration. And I will be talking about the different ways you can collaborate too. So I'm just going through the notes. So let's see. You can reach out to friends or people you already know. This is a great place to start because it'll already feel more natural. Okay, so, but you can reach out to people that you don't personally know. Maybe you haven't had a really strong connection with them, but you love their work. Maybe you've been following them for a long time. You have no idea if they even know you exist. I sound like I'm talking about a crush in high school. But you can reach out to them too. And I think that's one of my main things that I want you to take away from this is, you shouldn't be afraid to reach out if you want to. If you want to collaborate with someone, there's nothing that says you can't just send them a message and say, hey, I want to collaborate. And we're going to talk about exactly how to do that in just a minute. Okay, so if you're wanting to connect, or maybe you just don't have anyone that you can think of off the top of your head that you're already close to, connected with. So what you really want to think about is who complements what I do, who complements my business, whose work complements what I'm already putting out there. What else is my follower base or my customers? What else are they interested in? What else would they want to see? What value can I provide them outside of just what I do? You also want to, if you're reaching out to someone that you don't know personally or don't have a connection with yet, you really do want to go ahead and brainstorm what you want that collaboration to look like. Because if you just reach out to someone on Instagram, let's say for me, if someone were to reach out to me and just say, hey, want to collab? I would have to be, yeah, sure. What do you have in mind? That would be my first question. So you want to be able to answer that question first instead of putting it on them to say, here's what we're going to do. So you really want to do that brainstorming first. And I think that's, for example, again, I'm going to talk about the yarn bowl a lot because that's fresh on my mind. This was a collaboration that just happened. So when Corey reached out to me about the collaboration, she laid it all out. She said, "Here's what I'm interested in. I know that you crochet. Um, I don't have a following that's going to be specifically interested in this product, but you do. So is this something that you'd be interested in? Here's what I can offer you to make sure that you feel like you're getting value out of it." And that was sending me one of the yarn bowls. We did a giveaway together, but she had this written out. Like she already had at least part of a plan to send me. So that way I felt like, okay, well, you made that easy for me to say, yes, I think this would be a great idea. And of course, I still had to put work in. Once she sent the bowl, I did photographs. I put the giveaway together on my page since it was my audience that would get more out of that. But I think that making sure that you know what you want to do in collaboration with that person and making sure that they know from the start what your expectations are. What do you really think that you're going to want to do? Let's see. Okay. So do the work, get to know the person you're wanting to work with. So make sure you're following them. Make sure that you know kind of what their aesthetic is, how do they talk to their customers, what are the other things that they offer their followers outside of just what they make. The best example I can give of this is the Pink Sheep and Friends series that I do on Fridays. When I bring someone on to interview them, chat with them, I try my best to go through their feed and understand what are their values, what do they talk about outside of crocheting or knitting, um, what is it that they provide their followers, and maybe it's a focus on mental health. So that was Knitting Tipsy on Instagram. When she came onto my show, we talked about mental health because that is a huge focus of her channel, that she gives tips on improving mental health, improving confidence, those kinds of things. And I wanted to integrate that into our lives. So do a little bit of research on the people that you want to talk to, and that's going to help with that connection. So when you reach out to them, then they're going to feel like, oh, this person actually really likes what I do. They know what I do. They know what I offer. And it's going to make them feel like you did a little bit of work before reaching out and asking for a collaboration. Hello, Amaris, and is it Amaris? Am I saying that right? Amaris. And Sindra. Hello, Sindra. Welcome, welcome. And reminder, any questions you guys have, please pop them in the chat. I am happy to answer them. I know this is going to be a lot. I mean, I'm almost through with the first page. So, okay. Let's see. Oh, and this is good too. So Smeeny Beanie Knits, Shireen of Smeeny Beanie Knits. And I'm sorry if I don't mention everybody's name. Sometimes I'll only remember people's Instagram name, and I wouldn't have thought ahead to go back and look because as ideas pop in my head, I'm just sharing them. And the bowl was reverberating on the table. I could hear my voice like an echo. I had to put some yarn in there. So Shireen of Smeeny Beanie Knits on Instagram, she did a series that was similar to what I do with Pink Sheep Design. It was pre-Pink Sheep Design. Pink Sheep and Friends. She was actually one of the people that I was inspired to do my own series of bringing other makers on. But she did an entire series of episodes focused on what she called craftivism. And I think that that's a term that is used other than just what she used it for. I'm pretty sure that's a known term, yes, on the internet, right? Other people are using that term. And that is people who have created a business, a handmade business with a focus on some kind of activist, I can hear the TV in the background, sorry. But they have a focus on some kind of either nonprofit, charitable cause, something like that is the focus of their business. Maybe they give a percentage of what they make to this charitable organization. Maybe they support certain events for certain causes. So it's a cause-based handmade business, and that's the forefront of their business. And so she did an entire series where she brought on makers who are very open and honest and focused on that craft. So that is, if you go to their page, you immediately know what that cause is that they support. And so I thought that was really interesting. And that kind of goes back to that idea of getting to know who it is that you're bringing on. What is the focus of their work? Is it just a style and a focus for creating something handmade, or is it something deeper? Do they have other things that they talk about? So how to reach out. And I think we talked about this with big brands. It's very similar when it comes to, it may not be, you don't have to be as specific, in my opinion, when you're reaching out to another small business or another maker, because I do think that the idea of a collaboration with a small business or a creative person, another creative person, is that you can have a lot more of the back and forth brainstorming. You want it to be a collaboration, a true collaboration. So, for instance, when I reach out to large brands, I say, here's what I'd like to do. Let's go with like a yarn brand. If I ask someone for yarn, usually I'll say, here's why I'm interested in this yarn. Here's what I plan to do with it. Here's why it would benefit you. So for me, usually I reach out to these companies and say, hey, my focus is on super bulky yarn and jumbo yarn. And so my followers are always asking me where to find good options for super bulky and jumbo yarn. You guys have it. I would love to promote your specific yarn. Here's what I'm going to make with it. Here's how I'm going to post about it. And I have a plan. I have a very specific plan for what's going to happen. And usually the brand either says yes or no. There's not a lot of collaboration. It's usually, okay, we like your idea, we'll send you the yarn, or we're not interested right now, contact us later. Whereas with a brand, you can have a soft idea. You could reach out to someone and say, I'd really like to do a giveaway with you. Are you interested in that? I could provide a crochet pattern, or I could provide this. Would you like to join me and do something together? Whatever you can provide would be great. I think it would be a great opportunity for both of our audiences, that kind of thing. And they can come back and say, well, maybe I can't provide this, but I could do this, or maybe we could do it this way. And it can be more of a back and forth, which I think is really nice. And again, it leads to more of the opportunity to create a friendship, to create a relationship there, than just an exchange of goods, if that makes sense. Okay, let's see. Okay, so you don't want to reach out without a plan. And one of the reasons why I say that is because a lot of small businesses, if I put myself in this basket, we wear not only a lot of hats, but all the hats to run the business. So if you unknowingly, you're not going to know what they have on their plate. But if you reach out to someone and to collaborate, and they are already kind of overwhelmed with what's happening in their life and in their business, then reaching out with no plan whatsoever, it's going to be easier for them to say no. Like, I don't have time to try to figure out how to do a collaboration with you. And so I think, and it wouldn't be a personal thing. Like, I wouldn't want, and that's one of my tips further down, is not to take someone saying no as a personal slight. It's just, you never know what they've got on their plate. So you want to try, if it's your idea and you're reaching out to them, you want to do the work ahead of time to make it easy for people to say, yes, I think that would be great, and make sure you tell them, here's what I would need from you, and here's what I would be providing. So I think really sitting down, having a plan, having a strong idea of what you want to do as the collaboration will help open more doors. It'll help it make it easier for people to say yes, especially if they don't already know you, if you don't already have that relationship with them. Let's see. When you reach out, let them know that you like their work. Ask if they'd be interested in collaborating. Make sure you think of what kind of collaboration. So we went through that, but I do think, again, make sure you're following them. Make sure that you know a little bit about what they do before you reach out. I know I have had people ask to collaborate with me who, we aren't following each other, and so it makes me wonder if there's any actual interest in my work, if that makes sense. So make sure that you're actually already supporting this person, interested in their work, following them on social media, interacting with them a little bit. Usually that makes it a little bit easier for people to say, okay, this person is actually interested in working with me. Let's see. Okay, so let's actually go to the ideas first. Okay, because we're pretty much there now. So kinds of collaborations. And I would love for you guys to give me, because I'm going to have a little more coffee and I'm going to make sure I'm going to check the comments. But what are your ideas when you think collaborations with makers? What comes to mind? Because I would love to know if you guys have ideas that I didn't include. So what would you say would be some of the top ways that you could collaborate with another crocheter or another knitter or even someone outside of crocheting? So maybe you want to work with someone local who is a yoga instructor, or, because maybe your focus is on fitness and health. Maybe you want to work with a photographer in the area in some kind of way. What are some ways you think that you could collaborate with these other entrepreneurs and small businesses? Oh, let's see. Winter says, I think crochet along collaborations are pretty neat. And see, I did not have that written down. And on this one, like I said, I did want to focus on a wider audience. So I have a few ideas that may not be as specific to crochet, which is probably why I didn't think to put a crochet along or a knit along. But I am going to add that. Collab. I am going to make a blog post with all this info since I wrote it all down, but it just makes it easier for me to focus when I actually have notes in front of me, or I tend to just jump around and then not say all of the things that were in my head. Yep, so a collaborative crochet along or knit along. And I have not actually done one of those, but I know I've had quite a few people that I've seen who will come together. Two designers will come together and they'll do a crochet along or a knit along. Maybe they go live on Instagram, maybe they do it on their blogs, but I think that is a great way to connect with other designers for sure. Hen Winter says, my brain is not good at thinking of ideas. Totally understand. When I was coming up with them, I did a lot of research on what was out there. If you search collaborating with other artists on Google, you see a lot of articles on like how musicians could collaborate, how painters can collaborate, obviously how larger brands can collaborate, which is more of like the Forbes and business websites. But there was interesting information in all of it that could pertain to these smaller collaborations with artists and makers. And that's where all of these notes came from, was kind of sourcing ideas from different genres and different areas on how to collaborate. Kim says, if you work with thin yarn, collaborate with those who work with jumbo yarn to see how a pattern would translate. Yes. So I do want to go ahead and talk about that. Please keep your ideas coming. But I did want to say the idea of remixes. So this was something that I saw in the research that I did. I saw it in the music industry. So a way to collaborate with other musicians is to remix or cover their songs. And so I immediately thought of the patterns where someone has created a crochet pattern and another designer could create a knit pattern for the same item. Now, some designers do this themselves if they are a knitwear designer and a crochet designer. But I thought it would be really cool if two designers got together, one who did not create knitting patterns, and they remixed each other's designs. And obviously this is working together and collaborating, not just straight up not telling the person and taking their design and turning it into a crochet pattern, but a collaboration, because that's what we're here talking about. But collaborating in that way of creating a very similar piece that is, and this is something that I talked about with Knitting Tipsy, and I believe her name's Chelsea. I believe it's Chelsea of Knitting Tipsy. I need to double check that. But she has a jumbo knitting Santa hat pattern. I have a jumbo crochet Santa hat pattern. She does not have plans to create a crochet version. I don't have plans to create a knitting version. So it was a little late this year for me to realize that I needed to promote hers. But next year around Christmas time, we could do a cross promotion and a cross promotion collaboration to promote each other's patterns to our followers who either don't crochet or don't knit. So things like that are super fun. Laura says I did a pattern that was both knit and crochet, and yes, and there are a lot of people who do that themselves, but like for me, I have no desire to be a knitting pattern designer. So if a knitting, say crochet designer, if a knitting designer came to me and said, hey, can I create a knitwear version of your Luna cardigan or of, your Tonks hoodie or something like that, I'd be interested. I think it would be really cool to be able to cross promote and work with another designer to create something similar as a knitting pattern. So that's something that's totally possible. Let's see. Cinder says me either winter. And so Kim with the thick and thin. So for me, I made my Power Puff jacket using jumbo yarn, and someone asked me if I could make a lighter weight version. Lighter weight for me meant a super bulky version. So I've got my Power Puff and my Mini Puff. But if someone came to me and wanted to create a design using like a worsted weight yarn to create a similar pattern, that would be really cool too, because it's not something that I have a desire to do, so it's finding people to collaborate with where it's a win-win for both people. And if you guys watch The Office, it's like Michael Scott said, it's a win-win-win, because you win, the person you collaborate with wins, and the audience wins. Win-win-win. So Sindra says Gary at Urban Yarn made a hat for Crystal at Bag a Day, and she turned around and made a crochet version of his knitted bush tracker beanie. Yes. So it's figuring out ways that you can collaborate and then everybody wins. And I think that's what's important to keep in mind. Outside of crocheting, the idea of a remix, I also thought of, I don't know if you guys follow any graphic designers or illustrators or people who draw and sketch on Instagram. There is a challenge out there, like a hashtag that says draw it in your style. And I think it might actually even be abbreviated. What would that be? DIIYS, something like that. I think they've actually abbreviated it because it's a thing now. And someone will put their work out there and tell other artists to create that same drawing, but in their style. Because as you guys, I'm sure, have seen, all people who draw and sketch, all their work has very interesting a look and style to it. Like it's very specific to the artist. And so that's a really cool idea of kind of remixing a design. And that's something that you could put that out there. Maybe you release a free pattern and you tell other people to change it up and like, let's see what you create based on what I did. So maybe you release a hat pattern and you challenge a couple of other designers or a couple of other crocheters to remix your pattern to create something unique. So that was just something I thought of. But, for other artists, that would be, ceramics artists. I thought about that a lot, how there's all different types of looks and styles to people who create ceramic pieces, and they could remix each other's designs. Like I'm going to make a floral mug, and maybe the person who created it was like me, and it was bright and bold flowers, whereas someone who creates more of a vintage look or a minimalist look could create a floral mug, but it would be obviously different because they have a different aesthetic. So that kind of idea of remixing, I think, is really fun. So to me, the simplest collaboration that you can do is just promoting each other's work. So if you want something extremely inexpensive, something that's not going to take you much time, that's just going to be approaching a maker and saying, hey, we both have new patterns that are out. Can we collaborate and cross post? So I'll share about your pattern if you share about mine, or I'll share about my new item that I'm making if you share something of mine. So sharing content is one of the easiest ways to collaborate, and it's, very low key. It's not something that you need to write up your expectations or deadlines. I mean, you can obviously, give people a deadline and say, this month, let's cross promote each other's work. But that's one of the simplest things I think you can do. And that's really fun, especially if you're already friends with that person, to just continue to support them. Okay, so collaborative pattern or product releases. Is this what I was going to talk about? Let's see. No, that's not what I was going to talk about. So in the same way that I would collaborate with a larger brand, where the brand would maybe send me yarn and I would design something and promote it on Instagram. So a way that you can do that with small businesses or makers is doing a product exchange. So this is something that I did a lot when I was selling crochet items. So before I started designing crochet patterns, I sold at craft shows. And I would make connections with people that at the craft shows who did other things. And I would ask if they wanted to trade product for product, usually just in the hopes of, Christmas gifts. So, if I wanted to kind of Christmas shop, I could ask the maker first, do you want to do a trade? Because I've already got this stuff made. If you need some knitwear to gift to people in your family, we can do that. And that's obviously, it's still a collaboration. You're working with that other person, you trade items. But if you wanted to turn it into a true promotional collaboration, then you would post about the item that you traded, and they would post about the item that they got from you. So one in particular was Georgia Jams. So Georgia Jams it's still an amazing place to get homemade jam, and they ship. So if you're interested, you can still check them out. But they used to be at a couple of different shows that I would go to throughout the holidays, and they were always up for a trade. So anytime I would go, I would usually end up getting like a half a case of jam for, some hats or scarves or fingerless gloves that they could gift. But I wanted to take that further and post about it. I don't remember if they ever posted for me because that wasn't an expectation, but I definitely posted about them. And so that's something that you could turn into a true collaboration, and you could work with someone else, and then you guys can both post about what you got from that person. Who doesn't like jam? Another collaboration that I did, and this one we did actually cross promote and cross post. It was a trade with someone who made yoga mats. They were actually in the UK, so that was an interesting one because we both paid quite a bit of shipping to send each other product for product. But they sent me one of their custom yoga mats. I sent them a handmade scarf, and they posted about my scarf and shared and tagged me. I posted about the yoga mat and shared and tagged them. And that was a really fun collaboration with someone who was not obviously in the fiber world. So there are a lot of different things you can do there. For crocheters in particular, obviously this idea of yarn bowls, if you know a ceramics artist and you wanted to collaborate on something that was helpful for crocheters, then you could do that. And then I know a lot of people have worked with Bath and Body Works people. So if you have someone who makes handmade soaps, you could also create handmade soap bags or something that would go along with what they're creating. I know people like to crochet loofahs. So you guys could do a giveaway with items that they create and you create, or you could just cross promote. So if they are promoting their item, they could promote yours with it on social media, and you could do the same thing. So there's so many different options when it comes to product for product type of collaborations, with so many different people, local, not local, in your area, like in the fiber world, not in the fiber world. So it's just, it's the sky's the limit. It's, if there's people you want to work with, again, going back to the idea of making friends and doing things that bring you joy, if you have someone that's really awesome and you want to work with them and you think that it'd be fun, then pitch them an idea and let them come back to you with, you know, changes to that idea, or, you know, make it a brainstorming session. It's really fun. It can be really fun. Okay, so okay, so the next one was collaborative pattern or product releases. So this is in a way kind of similar to the remix idea, but you could either create an item together, and this goes back to this idea of me and Corey working together to create the yarn bowl, because she came to me not really knowing what was necessary for a yarn bowl because she doesn't crochet. So I had to work with her on the specs. I told her how big it needed to be a jumbo yarn bowl, so you could work with another person to and work together to create one item that you guys can then both promote. Or you could create separate products that go together. And again, going back to the yarn bowl, it could be she creates yarn bowls, I create hooks, now we can promote them together. Okay, so another option would be, if you're creating a pattern for something, you could ask someone to create a pattern that goes with it. So this is really interesting because Kim is on here, I think, still. And I am currently in testing for my marshmallow cardigan, cardigan, jacket. I can't remember which one I'm going to call it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, but I'm pretty sure, again, my brain is a little crazy right now, but you came up with the marshmallow hat. I mean, it was just a hat that you freehanded to create to match your jacket. And I immediately said, okay, either you need to sell this to go along with the marshmallow jacket and we'll have a collaboration there, or if you will allow me to purchase the rights of that pattern from you, then I'll release it as a collaborative piece to go with the jacket. So there are so many ways that you could do that with other designers or other makers, where you reach out and maybe you guys go in together on an idea to create something, or you create two separate pieces that can be promoted together. Which again kind of goes back to this idea of remixing, because if you have one person who creates a crochet version or one person who creates a knit version or something with two different yarn weights, then that's a really great opportunity to cross promote and work together on something. Let's see. And yes, a fun collab could be two people creating one pattern together, bringing each other's signature elements into one design. Yes. And I think the only time that gets tricky is figuring out compensation. So you have to be clear on your expectations of how that's going to work. That could be that both of you guys have the rights to sell the pattern forever. So like, if you guys work on it together, then either you could release it as a free pattern and then there's no question of, you know, compensation, or you could say, okay, we're gonna both maintain rights to this one pattern, but we both have rights to sell it on either of our Etsy shops or Ravelry or wherever. So that's something, but you know, you have to keep those expectations in mind if you're going to be sharing the rights to something that's actually making either of you guys money. So that's something to think about. Okay, so going live together. Obviously, that's something that I do a lot for my collaborations. You can do this easily on a lot of platforms. YouTube has now made it easy for you to actually have someone join you're live. I have not tried it yet. I don't know. I'm guessing you would need obviously a YouTube account. But I do this on Instagram all the time. Fantastic way to collaborate with other small brands and makers. Um, let's see. It's my favorite way to get to know other makers in the community that I don't know if I would reach out to them just to say hi. We're both crochet makers. Let's be friends, and then the conversation kind of ends. This is an opportunity for me to reach out and say, hey, let's do something together. Let's get to know each other a little bit more. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk to our audiences about something, whether that's just about your journey or about a specific topic. But obviously you have to be comfortable in front of the camera. So this is not everybody's favorite thing. But I do have a few people that I've met, especially in the art and maker community, who have podcasts. So you hop on a Zoom call and you talk to each other there, camera on or camera off, but then you extract the audio and you upload that and you actually create a podcast for yourself. So that is something that, if you really do like talking to other people and you feel like you want to share people's stories, but you're not super comfortable on camera, you could do a Zoom call or a phone. I don't know, a phone call, if you'd be able to really record well, but I know there's other software options out there for you to do something like a podcast so that you don't feel like you have to be on camera live. Let's see. In-person collaboration. So I did want to touch on this a little bit because, again, I wanted this video to be helpful not just to crocheters who have online friends, but for anyone who wants to collaborate with people within their community. So collaborative photo shoots is a really fun one. So if you want to work with other artists or other handmade businesses in your area, you can get together with your products and do collaborative photo shoots. Because again, we wear a lot of hats as handmade people. A lot of times we end up having to go in and get our spouse to take pictures of us or our partners to take pictures of us. So if you can get a couple of different handmade businesses together for a couple of hours, then you could take each other's pictures. This is something that I really enjoyed when I was in Atlanta. I would have a group photo shoot once a year where I would contact local makers. We would all come together. I would have my camera because I did do photography. So that's kind of what I offered, is putting it together, providing the photography, and we would photograph our stuff. So, we were out there for probably 3 or 4 hours, changing, into different things, wearing different items that people were making. That's a really, really fun way. And it's community. So my favorite thing about those was seeing relationships form that might not have formed if we had not all gotten together. So that was really, really cool. Sharing a booth at a craft show. Collaboration at its core, just getting two people together. Maybe you're new to craft shows. Find a buddy who maybe new as well. Maybe you don't have time to have a lot of inventory. That was something that actually came up this year. I met someone who is local. She only lives maybe 25 minutes from me and had not really done a lot of craft shows. And so we said, let's do one together. I don't have a lot of inventory anymore. That's not my focus, but I do have some inventory that was left over from when I used to do shows that has just sat in Tupperware bins. And so it was a perfect opportunity for us to just go share a booth. So we would have a full table. The show ended up getting canceled, so I didn't do it. But that's, it was a great opportunity and a great way to kind of dip your toe in if you wanted to split a booth fee and, work with someone else at a show. You could do a video together in person. The first thing that popped into my head was two crocheters or knitters getting together to visit a local yarn shop. Really fun, cool collaboration. And then both of you guys would be able to share the same content. So that's another plus of collaborating, is most of the time there's content creation in there and it gives you something to post about. So if you're stuck and you don't really know what to post about, collaborations are great for that, because you can go to someone and say, let's post about each other's stuff for a day or two, or something like that. So it gives you something to talk about, to share, and less that you have to create on your own. I also thought about, when I was looking at collaborating with other artists, the first thing that came to mind was murals. So when I was in Atlanta, there were a lot of murals that artists worked on together. There were multiple artists involved in creating the mural. And I was like, what if crocheters did that with yarn bombing? So you guys know about yarn bombing, where you create these big pieces where you crochet and you attach it to things outside. So I've seen people who like cover a what are those called? The fire hydrants with yarn, or create a mural on a fence using yarn. That would be something that you could collaborate with another crocheter on if you're local to the same area. Or what if you both created a piece of it and then you got together at one or the other's location to put the piece together and video you putting it together. So there's some really interesting things. If maybe you both decide to go to a conference together, and wouldn't be a conference, but like a fiber festival together, and you film a video while you're there talking to each other, or at the fiber festival. Let's see. Hosting an event or a class together. So that's another one I read a lot about, like meet and greets and things. But if you lived in the same area as another crocheter, maybe you guys teach a crochet class together. So there's a lot of different ways that you can collaborate. I did have 3 tips that came to mind while I was writing all of this out. The first tip is be open to the collaborators' ideas. Don't reach out with a plan that is set in stone. It should be a fun opportunity for you to actually collaborate, for you to actually talk to each other, brainstorm ideas. And you want to make sure that the person that you're reaching out to feels like it's worth their time and effort too, because both of you guys are going to be putting in both time and effort. And they may want to come back and say, well, I can't do this, but I could do this. So make sure that you're open to ideas when you reach out to someone about a collaboration. The second tip is don't take it personally if someone turns you down. As creators, we're often wearing all the hats. I talked about this a little bit already. It means you may unknowingly reach out during a time that they feel they can't fit a single additional thing on their plate. I've had this happen to me multiple times. And I've even had people give me a timeline of when they might actually be available. So when that happens, put it on your calendar, mark it down, and mark down to follow up with this person, so that then the door doesn't just close. You know that there's an opportunity for you to collaborate with them in the future. Make sure you write it down somewhere, put a reminder in your phone, on your calendar, that this is when I need to follow back up with this person about a potential collaboration. The third one is don't focus on the numbers. So this is important for anyone, no matter where you are in your journey, especially, I think a lot of us get stuck on social media metrics. How many followers do I have? How many likes do I get? How many YouTube subscribers do I have? How many visits are coming to my website? Don't feel like your collaborations will only be worth your time if the people you collaborate with have a larger audience, because it's not the case. Collaborating with people who have less followers than you or more followers than you, both of these are helpful for everybody's business, because you never know. I could end up having more people follow me and purchase from me by collaborating with a smaller account than myself than I might with a larger account. You just don't know who exactly is following them. So you don't want to focus so heavily on this idea that you can only collaborate with people that have a larger audience than yourself, or it's just not going to be worth it, because I promise you that it is. I would not focus on the numbers. I would not focus on, collaborating with these accounts that have monstrous numbers compared to yours. I would focus on whether or not you like their work, if you like their ideals, their values. What do they talk about aside from just the products that they create? Do you feel like you have a connection with them? Do you feel like you could actually talk to them? I think that is way more important than the number of followers that they have or the metrics of their social media accounts. Let's see. Sindra says, I have to make the hat so that I have it when I do my pictures for the marshmallow. Yes, and I still have to work on that. I've definitely been a little behind in the new year of getting all of my stuff together. Terry says, been working and lurking. I want to tell you what a great job you're doing on these subjects. I'm not a maker in the same way as you, but I love my makers and creators that are a part of my world. Thank you, Terry. Yeah, I don't do these as often. It's really, if an idea hits me, then I say, okay, I need to make a video with this topic in mind. And I actually do research and take notes and do all of that. If you guys have subject ideas before we go today, please pop them in the comments. If there's something that you'd like me to talk about and cover with crochet or creativity or collaboration or any of that, please pop it in the comments now. Let me know. Or pop it in the comments later if you're watching the replay, because sometimes coming up with ideas can be difficult. And usually, like I said, for me, it's just when it hits me. This idea came to me because I had just done that collaboration with Corey for the Yarn Bowl. And I felt like it's not something that's out there as much as collaborating with big brands. There's tons of information on how to collaborate with big brands, but not so much with just other makers and other friends and people like that. Cinder says, you never know who or how many are following who. Exactly. You know, I am sure, and actually I looked at my analytics the other night, and a huge number of my followers are not in the US and most likely don't buy a whole lot of stuff from me, but they follow my account because they're interested. So if I were to collaborate with someone who had a smaller account and who had more, you know, people following them in the US, then I might end up getting more people following me who are actually in the US and want to purchase more items from me, and vice versa. If I collaborate with someone who you know, sells items in the countries of the people who are following me, then they're probably going to get a boost, because if they're local to where that audience is, then they're probably going to be able to more readily support them financially if they can purchase something that is local to them. So you just don't know. And that's why I think it goes back to that very, very beginning, that collaboration should be about making friends and spending time with people that bring you joy, and it's a joy to work with them. It looks like the cat is waking up too. Y'all can see him down here curled up on my yarn bag. Well, thank you guys so much. I hope this was helpful. You know, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll have to figure out, if you're not in the Facebook group, please join my Facebook group. Just search Facebook groups. When you're on Facebook, go to groups. You can search Pink Sheep Design. It should pop up. I think there's a link in the description to the Facebook group as well, but join into the Facebook group. That's where I tend to have a lot of these conversations. I do polls about different things that we can talk about on Tuesdays. I also announce the Tuesday lives. As soon as they're posted, I'll share them in the Facebook group. But I'm just glad to have you guys here, and that, I hope you've enjoyed them. And this Friday is the captain's birthday. So we will not be having a Friday live, because I'll be preparing for a birthday party Friday night that we're going to have for him. So I won't have my live this Friday, but I'll be back next Tuesday, and we got to figure out a topic, because I don't have one right now. So if you guys have ideas for what you want to chat about next Tuesday here on YouTube, just let me know, and we'll get something put together. But I think that's everything. I did finish my Power Puff bomber jacket. I do want to show you guys that really quick, because it's done. I think I shared it in Discord and on the Facebook group, but this is, oh, good Lord. This is the Power Puff bomber jacket. Ooh, here we go. Nice big collar. It is a cropped style jacket, but it'll have the option to add length. But we've got our nice ribbing. This is super jumbo 7-weight yarn, 25mm hook, 20mm hook for the cuffs and for the front border. But super excited about that one. So, all right, I will see you guys next Tuesday. Hopefully I'll see you in the Facebook group before then or over on Discord, and I'll talk to you soon, guys. Happy hooking!